The science of reading people. Most people don't lie with words, they lie with everything around them. The pause before they answer, the tension in their face, the way their body pulls back while they say, "I'm fine." You felt it before, that moment when something doesn't add up, but you ignore it and move on. And that's exactly where people get misled, where they miss what's obvious because they focus on what is said and ignore what is shown. The truth is, words are only a small part of communication. The real signals are quieter. Expressions, tone, timing, posture, energy. And once you learn to notice them, people stop being confusing. You start to see what's actually going on beneath the surface. This isn't about judging others or trying to control them. It's about awareness. It's about understanding people clearly enough that you're not easily fooled, not easily influenced, and not blind to what's right in front of you. Because when you learn to read people, you don't just hear them, you understand them. Welcome to The Science of Reading People. Chapter 1. The Hidden Language of Human Behavior. Reading people starts long before words. In fact, before a person says anything, their body has often already revealed something about how they feel. The way they enter a room, where they place their hands, how they sit, how quickly they respond, how relaxed or tense they seem. None of this is random. Human beings communicated through movement and expression long before language became complex. That ancient system is still active. A slight posture shift can signal discomfort. A real smile reaches the eyes. A brief expression that lasts less than a second can reveal emotion before the mind has time to hide it. Professionals in psychology, behavioral analysis, negotiation and law enforcement all rely on this silent language, not because it gives perfect answers, but because it reveals patterns. Someone may say they are calm, but their fingers fidget, their breathing shortens, and their shoulders tighten. The words say one thing, the body says another. This is why one of the most important concepts in reading people is the idea of a baseline. A baseline is how someone normally behaves when they are comfortable and under no pressure. Until you understand that, you should be careful about making conclusions. Some people naturally avoid eye contact. Some people always speak quickly. Some people fidget even when telling the truth. What matters is not one isolated behavior, but a change from what is normal for them. Take something simple like a handshake, posture, or eye contact. A firm handshake may suggest confidence, but it can also be a performance. Weak eye contact may mean insecurity, but it can also mean shyness, fatigue, or cultural difference. Context matters. A single signal means very little by itself. A pattern means more. Reading people well is really a form of pattern recognition. The skilled observer does not jump at one clue. They notice clusters, posture, timing, expression, tone, energy, and whether all those things match the words being spoken. They also notice mirroring. When two people feel comfortable with each other, they often begin to reflect each other's body language naturally. When that mirroring disappears, the connection may have weakened. Facial expressions are especially important because they tend to reveal emotion faster than speech. Researchers like Paul Ekman identified several universal emotions that appear across cultures: happiness, sadness, anger, fear, surprise, disgust, and contempt. The body may be able to hide for a moment. The face often leaks first. The voice matters too. A delayed answer, a rising pitch, too much detail, or a strange pause can all suggest emotional strain. None of these prove dishonesty, but they tell you something changed inside the person. And that is the core of reading people: noticing change, noticing tension, noticing mismatch, noticing what seems slightly off, and staying curious long enough to understand why. To read people well, observation alone is not enough. You also need empathy, not sentimental empathy, accurate empathy. the ability to recognize that behavior is shaped by fear, desire, stress, memory, status, and emotion. The more you understand that, the less naive you become, and the less judgmental too. Every interaction teaches you something. Every person is signaling something. Most people simply never learn how to see it. Chapter 2. Decoding the face. The face is often the fastest truth teller in the body. A person can rehearse a sentence, shape a response, and control their words, but their face often reacts first. For a fraction of a second, emotion appears before self-control catches up. These brief reactions are known as micro-expressions. A person may smile politely, yet a flash of sadness pulls at the mouth. They may agree verbally, but a brief tightening in the brow reveals doubt. They may try to appear calm, yet contempt flickers across one side of the lip. These moments are easy to miss, but once you begin to recognize them, they become some of the clearest emotional clues available. The 7 commonly recognized universal expressions are happiness, sadness, fear, anger, surprise, disgust, and contempt. Each tends to have a recognizable facial pattern. A genuine smile engages the muscles around the eyes, not just the mouth. Fear widens the eyes and stretches the face. Anger lowers the brows and tightens the jaw. Contempt often shows as a one-sided lip raise. These reactions appear quickly and often vanish just as fast. The key is not memorizing expressions like flashcards. The key is learning to observe timing, congruence, and intensity. Did the expression come naturally and immediately, or did it appear a second too late? Did the face match the words, or did it contradict them? Did the emotional reaction fit the moment, or did it seem forced? The eyes deserve special attention. People say the eyes are the window to the soul, but more practically, they are a window to arousal, attention, and stress. Pupils can dilate during attraction, fear, or heightened interest. Rapid blinking can suggest anxiety. Prolonged staring may communicate dominance or aggression. A fixed gaze can mean focus, but in the wrong moment it can also feel like control. Even small behaviors around the face matter. Touching the nose, covering the mouth, rubbing the cheek, or tightening the jaw can all be self-soothing responses when someone is under emotional pressure. These are not automatic proof of deceit, but in a tense conversation, they are worth noticing. The face also tells you how much of a person's emotion is spontaneous versus managed. A real reaction tends to be fluid and whole. A fake one often looks partial, delayed, or limited to one area. Someone may look surprised with their mouth, but not with their eyes. They may smile with their lips while their face stays emotionally flat. That mismatch matters. As your perception develops, you begin to trust something most people dismiss. That quiet internal sense that something does not fit. Often your mind notices the inconsistency before you can explain it. Later, when you replay the moment, you realize what your brain caught. The delayed smile, the frozen eyes, the jaw tension, the half-second flash of irritation. Reading faces is not mainly about catching lies. It is about understanding what people are trying, failing, or refusing to express. The face is not just a mask, it is also a leak. Chapter 3. Body language. Before people speak, their body begins the conversation. The way they stand, sit, move, approach, or withdraw tells you how they feel long before they explain anything. Body language is one of the oldest forms of communication we have, and despite all our sophistication, we still respond to it instinctively. Open palms often suggest openness. Leaning forward tends to show interest. Turning away can indicate withdrawal. Crossed arms may suggest defensiveness, but they may also be comfort, cold temperature, or habit. Again, one gesture alone is weak evidence. Patterns are stronger. Confident people often take up more space. Their shoulders are back, their movements are slower, and they seem settled in their body. Insecure or uncomfortable people often make themselves smaller. Their shoulders close in, their head lowers, their hands hide. But even this needs context. A quiet person is not automatically insecure. A loud person is not automatically strong. Feet are often more honest than the face. People think about their expression. They rarely think about their feet. Feet pointed toward the exit can signal a desire to leave. Feet pointed toward a person often suggest interest. Restless foot movement can indicate nervousness, impatience, or a buildup of internal tension. Hands reveal a great deal as well. Open gestures usually communicate ease and confidence. Hidden hands can signal discomfort or restraint. Steepled fingers may suggest control or certainty. Repeated neck touching, rubbing the back of the neck or stroking the face often serve as pacifying behaviors when a person is uncertain or stressed. Mirroring is another powerful signal. When people feel safe, aligned, or connected, they tend to copy each other's posture, rhythm, and gestures without realizing it. If one person leans in and the other mirrors the movement, rapport is likely present. If mirroring vanishes or one person physically withdraws, the connection may be weakening. Personal space matters too. The distance people keep tells you a lot about comfort, intimacy, and status. Someone stepping closer may be expressing warmth, confidence, or dominance, depending on the context. Someone stepping back may be signaling caution, discomfort, or a need for emotional distance. The deeper skill is learning to notice deviations from normal behavior. A naturally expressive person who suddenly becomes rigid may be holding something back. A calm person who starts fidgeting may be under pressure. That is where body language becomes useful, not in fixed formulas, but in observed shifts. Context remains everything. Tapping a foot during a long meeting is not the same as tapping a foot while answering a difficult question. Folded arms in a cold room do not carry the same meaning as folded arms in the middle of confrontation. Reading body language is not about quick certainty. It is about patient awareness. Once you practice enough, you begin to feel the emotional state of a room before anyone says a word. You sense who is relaxed, who is guarded, who is trying too hard, and who is holding tension beneath the surface. That is where body language becomes more than observation. It becomes emotional intelligence in motion. Chapter 4. The voice behind the words. Words carry meaning, but the voice carries emotion, tone, pace, rhythm, pitch, hesitation, and volume often reveal more than the actual sentence being spoken. This is why a simple phrase like, "I'm fine," can mean 10 different things depending on how it sounds. Tone is emotional color. A flat tone may suggest detachment or fatigue. A warm tone can signal comfort and openness. A sharp tone may reveal irritation, even when the words remain polite. When the emotional tone and the message do not match, the tone usually tells the deeper truth. Pitch also changes under pressure. Stress often tightens the voice and raises pitch. Anxiety can create strain. A lower, steady voice often feels more grounded and trustworthy, though some people deliberately force calmness to appear in control. That is why you listen for shifts, not stereotypes. The pace of speech matters too. Fast speech can mean excitement, nervousness, urgency, or an attempt to rush through discomfort. Slow speech can signal thoughtfulness, caution, or emotional heaviness. If someone suddenly changes speed at a specific point in the conversation, that moment deserves attention. Volume is another clue. Raised volume can signal enthusiasm, defensiveness, or a bid for control. A sudden drop in volume can suggest shame, secrecy, sadness, or emotional retreat. Some people speak loudly to dominate. Others speak softly because they are conflict avoidant, insecure, or simply reserved. Again, the pattern matters more than the category. Then there are pauses. A calm pause can show confidence. An awkward pause after a direct question can reveal hesitation, inner conflict, or mental searching. Repeating the question before answering often buys time. Excessive fillers like, you know, like, and I mean, may increase when the mind is under strain. The throat also reacts under pressure. That is why people clear their throat, swallow more often, or experience voice cracks when anxious. The body is reacting physically to stress, and the voice reveals it. Speech patterns can also reveal status dynamics. Dominant speakers interrupt more, use firmer statements, and occupy more conversational space. More submissive speakers soften their statements, hedge often, and apologize excessively. Neither style is inherently better, but both reveal how a person positions themselves socially. When reading vocal cues, the most important question is simple. Does the voice fit the moment? Does the emotions sound natural? Does the confidence sound real? Does the sadness feel present or performed? The more carefully you listen, the more obvious these differences become. The voice is one of the most revealing parts of human behavior because it carries emotional residue. Even when the words are controlled, the voice often shakes, hardens, flattens, or rushes. And if you learn to hear that, you begin to understand people beneath their script. Chapter 5. Spotting lies. Lying places strain on the mind. A person telling the truth is usually recalling. A person lying is often constructing, monitoring, suppressing, and adjusting all at once. That mental load creates friction, and friction leaves clues. But here is the important part. Lies do not come with one universal signal. There is no single gesture, facial expression, or vocal habit that proves deception. Nervousness is not the same as dishonesty. Many honest people look uncomfortable under pressure. Many deceptive people look calm. That is why baseline behavior is essential. Without it, you are guessing. One of the strongest indicators of deception is incongruence, when the words, tone, face, and body do not line up. Someone says, "I'm completely fine with that," but their jaw tightens, their voice strains, and their body angles away. Something is off. It may not be a lie, but it is not emotional alignment either. Timing matters too. Truthful answers tend to come from memory and often arrive more naturally. Deceptive answers may include a pause, a repeated question, or an odd delay while the person assembles something believable. Liars may also use distancing language, reducing ownership of their words. Instead of, "I didn't do it," they say, "That didn't happen," or "The situation was misunderstood." Another common pattern is over-explaining. Truth usually does not need decoration. People who are lying often add extra details to sound convincing, but too much detail can sound rehearsed, unnatural, or oddly polished. The body often shows stress while the mind tries to stay composed. Hand-to-face touching, neck rubbing, fidgeting, restricted gestures, unnecessary stillness, throat clearing, and shifting posture may all appear under pressure. Again, these are not proof. They are signals that something is happening internally. Many liars overcompensate. They maintain too much eye contact. They act too controlled. They try to appear relaxed rather than simply being relaxed. The result is sometimes a strange stiffness that feels less human and more managed. Watch for verbal qualifiers too. Honestly, to be honest, I swear, believe me. Truth usually does not need those reinforcements. Over-insisting on honesty can reveal inner uncertainty. In high-stakes environments, trained professionals use methods that increase cognitive load because lies are harder to maintain under complexity. Asking someone to recall events in reverse order or from different sensory angles makes fabricated stories harder to hold together. In ordinary life, You do not need interrogation tactics. You just need patience, neutrality, and the discipline not to accuse too quickly. Ask calm questions. Listen more than you speak. Let silence do some work. People who are telling the truth usually remain more stable over time. People who are fabricating often start revising. The goal is not paranoia. The goal is clarity. You are not trying to become suspicious of everyone. You are trying to become less blind to inconsistency. Chapter 6. Personality patterns. Momentary signals show emotion. Personality patterns show structure. If body language tells you what a person is feeling now, personality tells you what they tend to be like over time. This matters because people are more predictable than they seem. Not perfectly predictable, but patterned. Some people avoid conflict almost automatically, others move toward it. Some seek approval, others protect independence. Some are careful, organized, and methodical. Others are flexible, spontaneous, and scattered. These patterns repeat across settings. One useful framework is the Big Five personality model: openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. People high in openness tend to be curious, imaginative, and comfortable with new ideas. Those low in openness often prefer routine, familiarity, and practicality. Conscientiousness shows up in structure, reliability, and self-discipline. High conscientiousness often looks like punctuality, order, and follow-through. Low conscientiousness may appear as impulsiveness, inconsistency, or disorganization. Extroversion is about energy direction. Highly extroverted people tend to be expressive, talkative, and socially energized. Introverted people are often more selective, reflective, and reserved. Introversion is not weakness, it is simply a different pattern of energy. Agreeableness relates to warmth, cooperation, and empathy. Highly agreeable people often avoid unnecessary conflict and prioritize harmony. Lower agreeableness can look blunt, skeptical, or confrontational, though not necessarily unfair. Neuroticism refers to emotional sensitivity and reactivity. High neuroticism can appear as tension, overthinking, mood swings, or visible anxiety. Lower neuroticism often appears as steadiness and emotional control under pressure. Other frameworks like DISC can also help. Some people are dominant and decisive. Some are influential and socially expressive. Some are steady and dependable. Some are compliant and detail-focused. The labels matter less than the observation. What matters is how a person consistently responds to stress, authority, uncertainty, conflict, and attention. Attachment style also matters in relationships. Secure people are usually more open and emotionally available. Anxious individuals may become hypervigilant, clingy, or overly sensitive to signs of rejection. Avoidant people may seem distant, contained, or uncomfortable with emotional dependence. The key to reading personality is repetition across time. Anyone can act warm once. Anyone can appear cold when tired. But when you watch how a person behaves across settings, patterns emerge. That is where personality becomes visible. Understanding personality does not mean putting people into rigid boxes. It means recognizing tendencies. Once you understand what tends to drive someone, control, validation, stability, novelty, safety, admiration, autonomy, you become far less surprised by their behavior. Chapter 7. Situational awareness. Before you read the person, read the room. Behavior does not happen in a vacuum. The same person can appear calm at home, stiff in a job interview, loud among friends, and emotionally closed at a funeral. That does not mean they are fake. It means human behavior is adaptive. Context shapes expression. Situational awareness means understanding the environment before interpreting the individual. Who has power in the room? Who feels watched? What is at stake? What social rules are operating? Who is comfortable and who is exposed? In a corporate meeting, an employee may appear rigid, not because they are naturally anxious, but because the CEO is present. In a crowded space, minimal eye contact may reflect overstimulation, not disinterest. A person seated at the head of a table may seem authoritative, partly because the environment gives them that role. The room itself influences behavior. Noise, space, heat, crowding, formality, and time pressure all shape posture, speech, and comfort level. Someone checking their phone may not be rude. They may be waiting for urgent news. Someone pacing before speaking may not be deceptive. They may simply be nervous. Group dynamics matter as well. People behave differently in private than in public. In groups, they may perform, conform, suppress, compete, or hide. Pay attention to who leads, who follows, who interrupts, who stays silent, and who others orient toward physically. Mirroring, eye contact, and response speed often reveal informal hierarchy. Then there is emotional temperature. Every room has a mood. Tension, boredom, excitement, caution, hostility, grief, anticipation. These emotional climates shape individual behavior. A confident person may shrink in a hostile room. A quiet person may come alive in a safe one. Good observers do not just ask, "What is this person doing?" They also ask, "What would this behavior mean in this setting?" That one question prevents a huge amount of bad judgment. Only after reading the situation should you narrow your focus to the individual. Behavior becomes much easier to understand when it is placed in context. Chapter 8. Emotional Intelligence. Observation without emotional intelligence becomes cold. Emotional intelligence is what makes reading people accurate rather than mechanical. At its core, emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize, understand, and respond well to emotion, both in yourself and in others. It is the difference between noticing signals and truly understanding what they mean. Emotionally intelligent people hear what others do not say. They notice sadness hidden inside politeness, fear hiding beneath anger, or insecurity concealed by arrogance. They do not take every emotional reaction at face value. They look underneath. But this starts with self-awareness. If you are angry, tired, insecure, or emotionally flooded, your reading of others becomes distorted. You stop seeing them clearly and start projecting your own state. That is why people with high emotional intelligence regulate themselves first. They do not rush to interpret while emotionally reactive. They also practice non-reactivity. When someone becomes defensive, aggressive, or shut down, low EQ people immediately counterattack, explain, or withdraw. High EQ people slow down. They ask what is really happening. They understand that behavior is often a signal of inner pressure. Emotional intelligence also means noticing shifts. A person enters energized and leaves quiet. Someone laughs, but their eyes turn distant. Someone responds too intensely to something small. These moments often reveal deeper layers that words have not caught up to. In relationships, EQ creates safety. It helps you know when to ask, when to give space, when to comfort, and when to stay quiet. In leadership, it helps you sense morale, stress, disengagement, and tension before those problems become open conflict. In everyday life, it helps you respond with better timing, better tone, and better judgment. EQ is not about becoming emotionally flooded by everyone else's feelings. It is about staying present enough to recognize them without losing yourself. It is empathy with boundaries, sensitivity with stability. To build it, listen more carefully, interrupt less, ask better questions. Notice not just what people say under pressure, but what they consistently feel unable to say. Validate emotion without rushing to solve it. Often people do not need immediate solutions. They need an environment where truth feels safe enough to come out. Reading emotion well is not softness, it is precision. Chapter 9. Intuition. Sometimes your body notices before your mind explains. You meet someone and something feels off. You enter a room and immediately sense tension. You hear the right words, but something in you refuses to relax. That is often what people call intuition. Intuition is not magic. It is fast pattern recognition. It is your brain processing subtle cues, expression, tone, timing, energy, inconsistency, faster than conscious thought can label them. A skilled therapist may sense a client is withholding something. A negotiator may feel resistance before it is spoken. A person with life experience may detect danger before they can explain why. This is not irrational, it is trained awareness, operating below the level of deliberate thought. But intuition must be used carefully. It is not always right. It can be distorted by fear, trauma, bias, projection, or past wounds. That is why intuition works best when paired with reflection. Ask yourself, what did I feel? When did I start feeling it? What triggered it? Was I reacting to reality or to an old pattern inside me? The more you reflect, the more you learn the difference between intuition and bias. Bias judges quickly. Intuition notices quietly. Bias feels loud and emotionally charged. Intuition often feels simple, calm, and clear. Your body is often involved in this process. Tightness in the stomach, shallow breathing, tension in the skin, sudden discomfort. These can all be signals that your system has detected something your conscious mind has not yet named. You can sharpen intuition by becoming more still, more observant, and less mentally noisy. Constant distraction blocks subtle awareness. Presence strengthens it. Reflection calibrates it. Experience refines it. In the context of reading people, intuition fills the gap between what you can explain and what you can sense. It should not replace evidence, but it should not be ignored either. Chapter 10. Manipulation and hidden motives. Not every difficult person is a manipulator, but some people do use charm, confusion, guilt, and emotional pressure as tools of control. If you want to read people well, you need to understand these patterns. Manipulation often begins subtly. A person may distort facts, shift blame, flatter strategically, create emotional dependency, or make you feel selfish for having boundaries. Over time, these tactics can weaken your confidence and make you question your own judgment. One of the most damaging forms is gaslighting, when someone repeatedly denies your reality, dismisses your memory, or reframes clear events until you begin to doubt yourself. The goal is not truth. The goal is control. If you leave interactions constantly second-guessing what happened, that is not something to brush off. Another tactic is triangulation. The manipulator brings in a third person, real or imagined, to create pressure. Everyone agrees with me. You're the only one who has a problem. My ex never reacted like this. This isolates you and makes you feel unreasonable. Manipulators often alternate between idealization and devaluation. First, they praise you, admire you, and pull you in. Then, once control is established, criticism, withdrawal, or blame begins. If you pull away, they may suddenly become warm again, just long enough to regain influence. This cycle is destabilizing because it trains you to chase relief from the same person causing the pain. They also avoid accountability. Instead of resolving conflict honestly, they deflect, reverse blame, cry strategically, explode, or position themselves as the victim. Their goal is usually not mutual understanding. It is to maintain power. The body and mind often recognize manipulation before the logic does. Do you feel drained after interacting with them? Guilty for things that were not your fault? Smaller, anxious, confused, or constantly on edge? Do your words get twisted? Do your boundaries provoke punishment or cold withdrawal? Those are warning signs. Protecting yourself starts with naming the pattern clearly. Do not rationalize what is obviously unhealthy. Set boundaries early. Refuse to over-explain your reality. Limit access when necessary. Stay close to grounded people who help you see clearly. Manipulators often succeed where self-trust is weak. The stronger your clarity, the less power they have. Chapter 11. Body clusters. One of the biggest mistakes people make is trying to interpret body language one gesture at a time. Crossed arms do not automatically mean defensiveness. A smile does not automatically mean happiness. A person touching their face does not automatically mean dishonesty. Meaning becomes clearer when signals appear in clusters. A body cluster is a group of behaviors that reinforce the same emotional message. Posture, facial tension, gaze, hand movement, breathing, and vocal tone all combine. When several signals point in the same direction, the interpretation becomes stronger. For example, openness tends to appear as uncrossed limbs, relaxed shoulders, forward orientation, steady eye contact, exposed hands, and responsive expressions. Defensiveness may look more like crossed limbs, leaning back, tight lips, raised shoulders, reduced eye contact, and a body angled away. Dominance often appears through upright posture, expanded use of space, slow, deliberate movement, steady gaze, and controlled voice. Nervousness or inner conflict may show up through self-touching, fidgeting, swallowed words, restless breathing, inconsistent gestures, and facial tension. Attraction often includes mirroring, orienting the feet and torso toward the other person, increased smiling, grooming gestures, light touch, and brightened energy. Boredom may show up as glancing away, slouching, checking a phone, flat affect, and physical disengagement. Stress often reveals itself through rapid blinking, jaw tension, rubbing the forehead or eyes, tight shoulders, forced laughter, and uneven breathing. The rule is simple: do not cherry-pick. Read the orchestra, not one instrument. Also remember three things. First, context changes meaning. Second, baseline matters. Third, synchronization matters. Truthful, relaxed communication tends to have greater alignment between words, tone, and movement. Guarded or deceptive communication often has more mismatch. The best readers do not rush. They gather data. They notice clusters, watch how they evolve, and only then form conclusions. Chapter 12. Building trust through observation. Reading people is not only useful for protection, it is also one of the strongest foundations for trust. When people feel truly seen, they relax. Not analyzed, not dissected, seen. Trust grows when your observation is non-judgmental. If people feel you are watching them to criticize or categorize them, they close up. But if they feel you notice them with steadiness, warmth, and no hidden agenda, they begin to open. This is where observation becomes relational, not merely analytical. You remember what matters to people. You notice when they seem different. You catch the emotion underneath the performance. You ask follow-up questions that show you are paying attention. Small things matter. Remembering a detail, noticing a change in mood, or quietly asking whether someone is really okay can create more trust than hours of superficial conversation. Emotional attunement matters here. If someone is low, you do not force brightness on them. If someone is excited, you do not flatten their energy. You meet them where they are. That emotional respect builds safety. Trust also grows through timing. Not every truth should be confronted publicly. Not every person is ready to open up in the moment you notice something. Skilled observers know when to stay silent, when to ask gently, and when to wait. That patience builds more trust than pressure ever could. People also trust those who can see clearly without becoming cruel. If you notice pain and respond with care, they feel safe. If you notice fear and exploit it, they feel exposed. The difference is everything. When perception is combined with compassion, people feel understood rather than managed. That is rare. And because it is rare, it is powerful. Chapter 13. The Art of Calibration. Reading people gives you information. Calibration determines what you do with it. Calibration means adjusting your words, timing, tone, and energy based on what the other person is showing you. It is the ability to respond intelligently instead of pushing the same approach regardless of feedback. If someone is guarded, a calibrated response is gentler and less intrusive. If someone is open and reflective, you can go deeper. If someone grows defensive, pushing harder usually makes things worse. Calibrated people know when to soften, when to pause, when to ask, and when to back off. Presence is essential here. You cannot calibrate well if you are trapped in your own head, rehearsing what to say next. You have to notice real-time feedback, the delayed nod, the tightening mouth, the lowered eyes, the drop in warmth, the leaning away. All of these are signals telling you whether your approach is landing well. Energy matters too. If someone is quiet and reflective, coming in too hard can shut them down. If someone is highly animated, an overly flat response may disconnect you from them. Calibration is not mimicry, it is alignment. Question style matters as well. A tense person may not respond well to direct interrogation. They may need softer curiosity. A highly analytical person may need structure and clarity. An emotional person may need space to feel heard before they can process logic. The same words do not work for everyone. Silence is also part of calibration. Many people talk too soon and ruin the moment. Sometimes the strongest move is to pause and let the other person continue. Silence can create room for honesty that pressure destroys. Calibration becomes especially important in conflict. If someone is angry, matching their intensity usually escalates the situation. Lowering your voice, clarifying, reflecting, and staying centered often works better. The point is not to surrender. The point is to remain effective. It is also important to know when not to calibrate endlessly. Some people will try to pull you into chaos, guilt, or emotional overfunctioning. In those cases, the right calibration is a calm boundary. Not every emotional state deserves full accommodation. True calibration is flexibility without losing your center. Chapter 14. Becoming a master reader. At the highest level, reading people is not about having tricks. It is about developing perception, emotional stability, and clean judgment. A master reader is not someone who constantly announces what they see. It is someone who sees clearly, responds wisely, and does not need to perform that ability. They do not reduce people to formulas. They remain curious. They stay humble. They know how much complexity lives beneath the surface. They understand that anger may hide fear, perfectionism may hide insecurity, arrogance may hide fragility, and silence may hide overwhelm. They do not react to the surface alone, they look underneath. Master readers also know themselves. They are aware of their own wounds, assumptions, biases, and emotional triggers. That self-awareness matters because a distorted lens creates distorted perception. You cannot read others clearly if you are constantly reading them through your own unresolved pain. They trust intuition, but they test it. They notice patterns, but they do not become arrogant. They listen more than they speak. They observe more than they assume. And they know that no person is ever fully figured out. Human beings are layered, changing, contradictory, and often deeper than first impressions suggest. The strongest people readers make others feel understood, not exposed, safe, not cornered, respected, not studied. That is the real point of this skill, because in the end, reading people is not about domination, it is about seeing reality more clearly. It helps you avoid manipulation, recognize sincerity, understand emotion, improve relationships, and move through the world with more discernment. The person who truly sees others does not become colder, they become sharper, calmer, and harder to deceive, more compassionate but less naive, more open but with stronger boundaries. And that is what makes perception powerful.